Hey, everybody, welcome back to Agents Confidential. I'm Eric. We've got Yana today, as always, and a wild and fun guest with a killer background today. We've got Jameson Keller, the CCO of NCD. Jameson, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Eric. I appreciate it. Hi, Yana.
Hi. Yeah, we're happy that you were able to come on with us. And for people who may not know you, myself included, we just met 5 minutes ago. But can you give us a quick overview, background? I know that you've been in the industry for a long time, and yeah, tell us where you've been and what you're focused on.
Well, let's see here. Today is actually my 21st anniversary in the business. I was thinking May 5th, Cinco de Mayo. I've already got queso and tacos and margaritas on the mind. But I've been in the industry now for 21 years, primarily on the Medicare side of the house. I started off as a sales rep for Secure Horizons by Pacificare before they were acquired by United Healthcare way back in the day. I've been at carriers. I left and the carrier side and went to an FMO back in 2016 called Agent CRM, built that up, quadrupled it in size, and then sold that. And now I've been with NCD since, let's see here, almost 5 years now. So 2021, I'm the chief commercial officer for the organization. That's somewhat ambiguous because I float around and do a lot of stuff based on the needs of the organization at the time. Right now, I am overseeing distribution efforts for the company, but I've also done product development and strategy and compliance and marketing and a whole bunch of other stuff. So just happy to be here.
Happy to have you.
Yeah. So cybersecurity. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about how important it is. I feel like it's something that agents don't really think about until it's too late or something goes wrong. And just kind of want to dive in to cybersecurity and like why it matters.
So first off, I wrote this because I saw a lot of people doing a lot of the wrong things on the interwebs. I'm all over Facebook and the different social media platforms, kind of seeing and in different groups, trying to see what people are talking about, what people are saying. And I email a lot of agents and I see agents at conferences and I'm seeing a lot of things that are telling me agents don't really know what they're doing. And that's to be expected. We're insurance salespeople. We're not all nerds. I happen to be both. And so I wrote this because it harms all of us when we are not doing things in a safe and secure manner. When we don't police ourselves and we don't do a better job than we are doing, that's when additional regulations come down. And as we know, regulations are often written by people who have no idea about the actual subject, and so they can appear to be draconian in their both development and implementation. We see our Medicare compliance rules and other insurance rules that are out there that sometimes you say, whose idea was this? Who said that we have to have a scope of appointment? It has to be 48 hours prior to having that conversation with the client. And, oh, by the way, if they call us on the phone, if they don't say the exact right words, we can't talk to them at that point. We have to interrupt the conversation, read 7 disclaimers, and then give out this scope. Luckily, a lot of that stuff is changing with the new final rule that dropped. But cybersecurity is really no different than that. So this is one of my ways that I'm giving back to the community overall to say, how do we make sure that we're protected? Utilize my knowledge and my gifts to help further the industry. None of this is actually, while I work for NCD, none of the cybersecurity stuff is endorsed or represented by NCD. This is just me as a giant nerd who wrote this, though I'm sure NCD would be happy to have their name on it. I'm not going to put them in liability by saying that this is their stuff.
So let's start with the basics. Like, where do we have to first kind of look at things? What are agents doing wrong, or where do we want to start this? I feel like the cybersecurity is like this huge elephant in the room that people they've heard the term but don't know what it really means.
Yeah, so I would say starting with the basics and thinking about HIPAA. While we are not medical providers, and while it can be hard to accept the fact that HIPAA data includes insurance plan names, or a member ID number, all of this is HIPAA data. It's HIPAA PHI, and we are responsible to protect that. So starting from that perspective of how do I protect my clients? How do I make sure that we're compliant with the rules? How do I make sure that I'm compliant with the laws that are out there? But most importantly, it comes down to how do I ensure that my clients are protected? Since that's the game we're in anyway, ensuring that our people are protected. That's where we want to start.
Mhm.
So let's use a really important example. Email. All right. Everybody's always talking about, oh, email. You got to make sure that you encrypt the email and you have to make sure that it's HIPAA secure. How many agents, and you guys see a lot of agents with your FMO, and so you see a lot of email addresses. How many agents do you see come through with at gmail.com, at hotmail.com, at AOL.com, because apparently it's still 1994. We see this all the time. And what people don't seem to understand is that when you have a free email account, let's use Gmail as the example. When you have a free email account, when you're not paying for a product, that's because you are the product. Google is not a search company. Google is a cell phone company with Android. Google is not a electronic IT company. Google's a marketing company and an advertising company. Their business is data. The reason they give you email for free is because everything that's in your email is read and it's used to generate profiles on you and other people in order to sell advertisements and do better ad targeting. It's amazing the amount of data that these companies have on you. Now, it's not a person sitting there behind a computer screen all day long like, oh, yeah, looks like Eric just bought flowers from FTD.com because he got in trouble with the wife yesterday. But so it's not a person doing it, but they have their computers scanning this and creating massive databases and dossiers effectively on individuals and on trends. And if you've got HIPAA data in your email, it's technically now being exposed and provided beyond the intended purpose and beyond the people that are allowed to see that, which is a HIPAA violation. And so one of the first things and easiest things somebody can do is ensure that they have a HIPAA compliant email. That starts, if you're using Gmail, that starts with buying Google Workspaces. I think it used to be called G Suite. They've had other names for it, but it's their paid service and it's cheap. I think it's like $7 per user per month. It's super cheap.
But Jameson, the other one's free.
Yeah, it is true. But the other one, they won't sign a business associate agreement, a BAA. And that BAA basically says, hey, Google, we're agreeing that you're going to follow the HIPAA compliance rules and you are not going to actually scan my email and use that data for marketing purposes. And they'll turn off certain parts of their Google Workspace account or Google for Business, whatever they're calling it. But they'll turn that off so that if they can't comply with it, so that you remain HIPAA compliant. And with that, not only are you compliant, but you can also then assign a domain name to your email. You can go out and buy.
Much more professional.
Bingo, exactly. So you can go out and buy at yanadecourt.com. All right. And so it can be like Medicare questions at yanadecourt.com, which is way more professional and you seem far more legit than if you're, you know, Billy Bob 67 at 67, right? 67 at hotmail.com. Come on.
Yeah.
So that's one major thing that people can do that both professionalizes them more, gives more credibility to their business, but most importantly, protects their clients and protects themselves.
So just requesting that and paying a little bit of money is the start. What would be like, let's keep leveling up.
All right. So leveling up, all of your emails that you send that include PHI are supposed to be encrypted. Now, most modern email systems are automatically encrypted using a method called TLS encryption. Now, TLS only works if when I send something I have TLS on, it is by default on modern email systems, and the person on the other end receiving it has TLS on, it's encrypted in that point. You're good. You follow the rules. Technically, I believe, don't quote me on this, I'm not an attorney, but I believe that if you have TLS on and the other person doesn't, it's still encrypted in transit, and it still meets the rules that you have. What it doesn't do is it doesn't make it so that if you send it to the wrong person, all right, they can't open it. It doesn't make it so that it's encrypted on your computer. It makes it so that somebody can't snatch it out of the air, all right, which this is a thing. Your emails are flying through the air at times. Somebody can't snatch it out of the air and sniff it and then actually access that information. That's the term. It's called sniffing. All right, but they can't sniff it out of the air and then access that information because it's encrypted in transit. A level up from that would be to purchase an email encryption additional point of software. And we've almost all dealt with these where you get an email and you have to enter either a password that you've pre-created, or it sends you another one-time use code or something along those lines. There are plugins that you can use with Outlook and Office 365, with Gmail, with all of the major email systems that allow you to further encrypt it. Now, just one quick bonus point for everybody, whether it's encrypted or not, all right, the subject line of an email is never encrypted. And so don't put PHI in a subject line. I see it all the time. M. Night Shyamalan, member ID 123456 in the subject line. Well, you've just broken HIPAA at that point. So little things like that.
Yeah. I'm taking a look here at the white sheet that you'd sent over just before this, and there's something interesting. ChatGPT. Do not put personal health information into AI tools like ChatGPT.
Yeah. This
Tell
is the
us
big one.
about that, because maybe that is new to someone.
Though ChatGPT is very powerful, and using it in the right way, you can get some pretty good information overall, but you probably shouldn't use it as your doctor. The point, though, of ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini and all of these is you can think about this beyond AI. Think about this just as software as a service tools. Your Gmail, your Salesforce.com, your agency block, whatever it may be. If you're not downloading the program onto your specific computer and everything is running on your computer, if you were unplugged from the internet, fully disconnected from the world, would that software work? If that's not the case, then you're operating on a cloud basis. All right. Software as a service. That means the cloud is not actually a cloud. It's literally data centers all over the place that you're accessing other computers. A server is nothing more than another computer that you are accessing and multiple people are accessing to gain information. When you are utilizing the internet or the cloud or these other servers, you are now going beyond yourself and someone else has access to that data. So back to ChatGPT, if I type client Mabel Smith has diabetes and COPD, and I'm looking at putting her onto the United Healthcare plan in Detroit, Michigan. Is this the right plan for her? First off, do better. You should know what your job actually is, and you shouldn't have to use ChatGPT for that. But you are literally putting that information onto other servers. And just like Google, all right, they're gathering all this data, and that data is being used to train these AI LLMs, large language models, in order to be better and get better. And so by putting that information out there, you're in violation of HIPAA and you're exposing your clients. There are some stories from about 2 years ago where there was confidential, super confidential business data, all right, that somebody found in ChatGPT by asking certain questions. It came up that the model had been trained on because someone else decided they were going to use ChatGPT in evaluating something, and it wasn't in a secure manner. There are ways to utilize AI in a HIPAA sensitive manner with BAAs where it does isolate these things. There are ways to use them on local machines. It's complex. Most of our agents are not there. So I definitely recommend, if you aren't 100% certain that what you're doing is protected under that, you've not signed that business associate agreement, you don't know for certain that they're not using that data, I would be very cautious of it. There was an email AI system that I started playing with early on. It was like Fixer or something like that, that said, we're HIPAA secure, we're HIPAA compliant, and here's what we do, and we're SOC 2. And I started going down the line because they wouldn't sign a BAA. Started going down the line and looking. Everything they were doing was secure, but then they were sending stuff out. It was like a third party sort of thing. And it's not secure at that point. That's why they wouldn't sign the BAA. They can't control it and live up to those expectations.
I
So
feel
yeah,
like this.
don't put the information into AI if you wouldn't go and tell it to some dude on the street.
Yeah.
I feel like this is like the new call recording, right? I feel like a lot of agents, typically older agents or not tech savvy agents that, couldn't figure out call recording. So they, either got out of the business or really struggled. And, already you're saying it's complicated and you wrote a white paper about it. Are there steps or are there services that are provided to help with these things that are reasonable?
Some of the stuff like AI, I believe, and I don't know everything that's out there. I have not done a survey of the market, but I believe that AI is probably a little early in its lifespan for there to be easy to use tools for the layman that just knows how to turn their computer on. And so probably not there yet. Victoria Cabrera talks a lot about AI on stage at these various events. She's down here in San Antonio, and she talks about how people can use AI in these manners. Bottom line is, if you're going to use it, just don't do it with HIPAA data for the period of time until somebody comes out with a service that you're ready for. Honestly, I wrote this white paper to be approachable for everybody. And it's got 5 or 6 things on here that if you do, you're most of the way there. Okay.
Nice.
A lot of it is the mindset and the consciousness of understanding what you need to do and not just going out and doing stuff. Think twice. So let's talk about one thing that's super, super easy for people to do. All right. That is a massive risk mitigation step. So when I was in college, like back forever ago in the Stone Age, 20 years ago, I guess it was more than 20 years ago at this point. I was living in Vancouver, Washington, which is right across the bridge from Portland, Oregon. And in one of my classes, we read a case study about Providence Health Systems, which was the hospital system literally on the other side of the river in Portland, Oregon. And that case study was talking about laptops that were stolen that had hundreds of thousands of lines of HIPAA data on them. It's taken out of the trunk of a car. Twice. It's happened twice to the same health system in a matter of like 2 years. All right. Massive, massive HIPAA breach. All right. And there was one thing that they could have done that they didn't that would have made this a completely moot point, and that's hard drive encryption. And so fast forward, I'm running Agent CRM. One of our agents calls us and says, "Hey, Jameson, I've got a problem. Our office was broken into last night. Computers were stolen. All right. Let's handle this. We got to start reporting to carriers and talking about what's next and start the mitigation plan." The very first question from every single carrier, were the hard drives encrypted? And what that means.
What do you mean?
Right. Luckily, the answer was yes. Okay. So unlike Providence, who that cost them a ton of money and time and issue, and they ended up as a study in college textbooks, this agent was fine. If this agent hadn't encrypted them, I promise you right now, they would be out of business. They would probably have multiple fines. There's a slight possibility of criminal issue, but massive problems. So I don't know about you guys, but while NCD is orange and I look fantastic in orange, I don't look fantastic in an orange jumpsuit. All right. I try to do everything I can to ensure I don't go to prison. And so this is a minor thing that people can do to protect their business. What a hard drive encryption means is you're like, well, heck, I've got a killer password. Nobody's going to guess password 123 exclamation point. All right, I got this. Whether you have a password or not, if I break into your office and I take a computer out of your office and you've got an amazing password on it, here's what it takes for me to get access to the data if it's unencrypted. I'm going to open up the side of that computer. I'm going to unplug the hard drive that is in there, that is just a box, and I'm going to plug it into another computer as a secondary drive. I now have access to everything that's on that computer. Everything. All of the data. It doesn't take a lot. Like literally we're talking 4 steps, all right, that a 12-year-old could do. Now, to be honest, most 12-year-olds can probably do them more than most 50-year-olds right now. That's another story.
Yeah, right.
But if you're running a Mac, they have hard drive encryption automatically built into it. You just have to click a button to turn it on. It's called File Vault. All right, you go into preferences and settings, and you type File Vault into the search, and it pops up. Would you like to encrypt your hard drive? Yes. It'll take an hour or so as it runs through its thing, and it makes it so that if I pull that hard drive out and I try to access it, it's all scrambled. I can't get it. I need a specific key of some sort to get in. With Windows, in Pro editions of Windows, BitLocker should be automatically included. Otherwise, there are encryption tools that you can purchase, sometimes for a monthly fee, sometimes a one-time purchase, but there are encryption tools that you can purchase that will encrypt your hard drive so that if somebody does get access to that computer in a physical manner, they can't get anything on it. This is stupid important. All right. The number one question a carrier will ask, the very first question a carrier will ask, if you lose a computer, whether it's you leave your laptop at a Starbucks, it's taken out of your car, somebody breaks into your office and takes this, your cell phones, your iPads, whatever it is, wasn't encrypted. All right. Now, some people say, well, I just wouldn't report it to the carrier. I'm not going to tell them. They're going to find out. And then that data starts getting out there, it gets traced back, they're going to find out. Or somebody's going to blackmail you with that data. Encrypt your hard drives. Very, very easy to do. And it's a huge amount of protection.
Does the white paper you wrote kind of walk you through those steps?
So it tells you the names of those programs that I told you about. It explains why. It does not walk you through the steps of how to do it. As you can imagine, technology changes so quickly and the way you go about it in a computer changes. Honestly, you can Google it. You can jump on ChatGPT and be like, here's what I've got. How do I do this? And it will walk you through it pretty easily.
Jameson, at a past company that I worked at, they would send out these phishing tests.
Yeah.
That I got hooked quite often on. What are some typical things that phishing's still a real thing that people are doing, right? To get access to your computer. Does your white paper, can you speak to that at all?
So my white paper talks about phishing and social engineering at a high level. It doesn't go too deeply into it. And I'll tell you, I'm glad you brought up phishing. I wasn't going to talk about it today, but it's getting harder to detect and it's getting worse because of AI tools. Hackers are putting stuff out that it's good. It's real good. There's a lot of things you can look at with phishing. Typically phishing is not a matter of you just have an email and you open it up and you're hooked. You normally have to take some form of action. You click a link and it installs a virus on your computer. Most good virus software will prevent against that. The biggest thing that people try to do is get you to click a link and enter your login credentials. And then they have access to your stuff. And actually, I want to talk about login credentials next because it flows right into this. But with AI, it's getting harder. You used to look for misspellings and weird grammar. You used to look for things like, would this person actually be talking to me this way or refer to me this way? Your mom sending you an email that's like, dear sir, probably not right. Changing letters and to numbers and vice versa in web addresses and email addresses to make it look the same. Google.com, instead of Google, it's G00GLE, but all in caps. So the zeros kind of look like O's. Things like that. Hover over links to see where they're actually going. Just because a link says, www.cnn.com doesn't mean it's going to CNN. It could actually be going somewhere completely different, but they can make it look like whatever they want.
Wow.
Crazy.
All right. It's harder and harder these days to catch some of this stuff, and they're getting far more sophisticated. So if you're not expecting it, an attachment, don't open it. If you don't recognize the link or you're not expecting the link, maybe don't click it. If you are questioning whether it's real, pick up the phone and talk to the person. All right. Better yet, use FaceTime or something like this to talk to somebody, because with deep fakes and everything else now, things can get a lot harder to detect. But question things. Don't just go in blindly, and it'll help keep you safe. It is impossible to remain perfect in this manner. You will get hit. So when you get hit, make sure that you are reporting it. Make sure that you are changing passwords. Make sure you are doing mitigation steps ahead of time and afterwards to protect yourself. I want to talk about one of those mitigation steps that's very, very important. And I'm going to tell you a story as to why. Back in like 2009 or 2010, Wired magazine had an article. Wired's a nerd magazine.
I know Wired.
It's a mainstream nerd magazine, okay? So Wired magazine had this article about this guy who somebody compromised his email password, and he was using like an iCloud or an Apple Mail or whatever it was at the time, through Apple. He was using one of those, and somebody compromised his email password and immediately changed his password. And then they started locking things up or deleting things, and he could no longer get access to it. And what this article was talking about specifically was both email hygiene, but also multi-factor authentication. If somebody gets access to your email, they pretty much own every password account you have. Because what do? Oh, forgot my password. What does it do? It sends you an email.
That's your email.
Right? So that's how they're verifying that it's you. If they have access to your email, what are you going to do? And if you don't have access to your email, how are you going to go change those other accounts? And more importantly, people use the same password for everything. You know, they use password 123 across 5 different systems. So when somebody breaks into one, they now have access to all of them. Right? It doesn't take very long to brute force a password that's, 8 letters long. Passwords should be greater than 15 letters long. They should all be different. They should be password or that letters, numbers, symbols, uppercase, lowercase. All right. But how do you remember all that stuff? How do you even think about what to generate? Managers.
Yeah. Do you use like a password manager, like a LastPass or different?
I've used a
different
number of them. Apple has made it so easy these days with passwords on Macs and iPhones that you can use that. Bitwarden is free for individuals and really cheap for families and businesses. LastPass is a mainstream one that's out there. I've used LastPass a number of times in the past. They've been hacked a couple times, nothing major, but they've been hacked a couple times, so I don't use them anymore. 1Password is really well reviewed. Dashlane, there's a whole bunch of these out there. And what a password manager is you remember a single password. You remember just one. It's your master password to get into the system. And then you use the password manager to both generate random strings of letters, numbers, and symbols that are super long so that you don't have to generate them. You don't have to remember them. And it will autofill these things for you. Now, you might say, well, great. So now all of my passwords are basically that one password to get into the system. Number one, that's why you have that be a very strong password that you only use there and nowhere else. You make sure it's not a dictionary word because they'll use dictionary words. Some people say use passphrases, which are like pick 3, words that don't really normally go together. Football dancing monkey or something like that. What might be a good one? It's long, you uppercase, lowercase. It's a lot easier to do, and it's not things that would go together. There's passkeys are a thing that are starting to take over now. And frankly, I don't even fully understand passkeys. And so we're not going to get into those today. I use them, but I don't understand them in an in-depth level enough to teach them. But if you both make your master password strong and then also protect it with 2-factor or multi-factor authentication, that's where it becomes truly safe. And that's how you protect everything. So if you are trying to log in, it might send you a text message with a 6-digit code that you then have to also type in. I recommend not using text message for these types of things. That can be spoofed, that can be hacked. You can download apps on your cell phone, Google Authenticator, Microsoft Authenticator, a number of these different things that you sync with the software, and it has a rolling code that changes every like 30 to 60 seconds. And so in order to sign in, you both need to know the password, but then you also need to have a physical device that you are gathering the information from in order to access it. There are USB drives that you can plug in, like you have it on your key ring, you plug it into your computer, and that is your physical key. And the password doesn't work if that's not also plugged in. All right.
You just open a can of worms. Have you seen where chargers, right, have I don't even know the verbiage, but we're basically like, let's say there's a charger on a table at a conference, and you go plug your computer or your phone in to use that charger, it can pull the data off your phone or your device just by plugging in. That's a true statement, correct?
You can plug keyboards into computers that actually have sniffing software that are remotely or that are wirelessly sending this out. Charging blocks or just USB ports in random places. I won't plug into a random USB port because, they can be faked and they can have key logging information in there, either sending it or somebody comes back and retrieves the data. It gets wilder than that. The
That's crazy.
FBI, and this is 10-year-old data, maybe a little bit older than that. The FBI is finding small electronics and small appliances, toasters, refrigerators, blenders that have Wi-Fi chips in them. And you plug it in to power and you're using your blender or your coffee machine or whatever, and it starts sniffing the network and it breaks into your Wi-Fi in your house and then proceeds to use that larger signal, larger antenna to now break into your neighbor's Wi-Fi's, all right, and then continue to spread from there and create what's called a botnet. I don't
Crazy.
Never using a toaster again.
look here. So they were finding it in standard grade consumer stuff.
Yeah.
They've done a pretty good job about rooting a lot of that stuff out. You're fine if you're buying a normal brand. What I'd be real careful of is you go to wish.com, you go to AliExpress, heck, you go to Amazon, and you're like, ooh, I really like this security camera. I'm going to put this in the house to watch the house for while I'm gone. And it's brand name something you've never heard of. All right. You're not Googling it. It's like, clearly this is some, Chinese knockoff brand or something. Those are the types of things that you'll find are sniffing or hacking or phoning home. My dad actually bought a camera and he sent me one as well. And I'm like, I'm not plugging this stupid thing in. I didn't tell him. I just threw it in the trash. But then he got one as well. And you had to go activate it. And it was brand new in the box. And he opened it up and he tried to activate it and says, this is already activated and transmitting.
Sketchy.
Yeah, he hit it with a hammer.
Even I've heard of
Yeah.
like baby monitors too.
Baby monitors, yep. I mean, because they're cameras.
Yeah.
So it's kind of wild what's out there. I mean, this is where you kind of want to look for, did the FCC certify that particular device, or did you buy it off of Amazon and it showed up and it doesn't actually have an FCC certification, to where they know what frequencies it's transmitting on and everything else. I wouldn't look, you can go down rabbit holes and you can get super paranoid. Don't plug into random USB ports if you can avoid it. Don't use random cables that you find. Don't pick up USB drives off the ground and plug them in. Honestly, you go to a conference, they have USB drives on tables that they're giving away. I won't touch them, because if I wanted to hack people's computers, one of the very first things that I would do, because I go to all these conferences, is I would just start dropping USB drives into piles where they look similar on tables, and somebody's going to pick it up, somebody's going to plug it in, and then I can own you.
Crazy.
And it's not the type of stuff you want. Because in my opinion, one of the scariest things that happens is called ransomware. And you click something
I
in
got
your
your
computer,
info and you got to pay me to get it back.
yeah.
I'm
So
gonna expose you.
it's effectively a virus that over time, it encrypts your hard drive or encrypts your files, and it doesn't hit right away. And at some point they flip a switch and it turns on and your system will not work. And they're demanding a certain amount of money in Bitcoin. You need to send me, half a Bitcoin, which right now is like 40 grand. You need to send me half a Bitcoin or $300 worth of Bitcoin or whatever it may be in order to unlock your stuff. And even if you do, good luck. Are they actually going to unlock it?
Have you seen the movie? It's a newer one. I think it came out in 2024. The Beekeeper with Jason Statham.
Yes.
So there's everyone listening, in the first 6 minutes, there's a clip that you need to show every one of your senior clients. So this lady that he is friends with gets a pop-up on her screen, says you're going to lose your information, call this number. Of course, she calls the number and they proceed to tell her what buttons to push so she doesn't lose her information. She doesn't do all these things, and basically goes through the whole thing and is like, okay, that should fix it. He goes, yep, hit enter. Screen goes black, phone hangs up, and she's like, I lost everything.
Yeah.
Well,
they're draining bank accounts. The number one easiest way to hack anything is not to sit behind a keyboard and go nuts and ones and zeros on a screen in a dark room. It's actually people, the human element. And it's convincing somebody to give you what you want without them realizing it. In this case, she thought she was going to lose something if she didn't start giving out this information. And so in that movie, she gave out that information, and it opened up the doors for these people. They'd already bought enough information, which is out on the dark web, and you can buy, or heck, you can buy it legally, information about people that she felt comfortable. She gave them that info and she gave away the farm. So companies talk about this all the time. Like if you work in an office building, don't let somebody tailgate you through that door. Make sure everybody's scanning in. If somebody asks you to do something for them and you don't know who they are, are they actually there for a legitimate purpose? So think about how people are asking questions and what they're asking and why are they asking for that information. And unfortunately, our seniors are the ones that are most preyed upon because they're trusting and they have usually much larger bank accounts because of what they've saved up for their entire life, and so they become the prey. We used to see this with the Nigerian print scams and some of these old email scams that are out there, and they seem dumb, but they're designed to weed out the people that, as you get through the process, are going to figure it out, and just to capture the people that are trusting. And so be really, really careful with your information and with your client's information, because you are a steward of your client's data and safety and their information overall. So if you're not using these tools that we're talking about, if you're not somewhat security conscious, and you don't have to be a giant nerd, okay, like me, if you're not at least somewhat security conscious, you're actually going to harm the people that you're trying to protect.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very
Totally.
important.
Yeah.
What would be a reaction, say, if or when things go wrong, right? Like what's the next step? You're like, I think I've been hacked.
Will go wrong. Something will go wrong at some point. So that's a hard question to answer because there's a lot of things that you can do.
It depends.
So I'm not going to necessarily do it in order per se. I'm just throw some things out. Number one, you need to report it. You need to talk to the carriers. If you think that your data has been stolen, you need to talk to the carriers where that's been a compromise. Biggest, easiest one to understand is my laptop was stolen. I know that I had data on that laptop for United Healthcare. I need to report this to United Healthcare. They will then give you instructions on things you need to do.
Okay.
If you think that you've been potentially hacked, change your passwords, all right? Change your passwords on everything. If you're reusing a password, you got to change a lot of stuff. If you're not reusing passwords, you may only have to change one password, but change your passwords. I'm the type of person, if I think that I've been hacked, first thing I'm going to do is unplug from the internet. All right, disconnect so that if there's something actively going on, I've killed the connection. But then it can be hard to change passwords from there. But at least buys you some time to think about it. And figure out what's your next move. If you think it's a big hack, call the police, call the FBI. All right. They have full divisions all about cybercrime. But number one, the answer is not don't do nothing. Don't sit on it and hope that it gets better, because it's not going to get better. Number two is you report it out in good faith so that you are able to seek the guidance of these carriers that also want their data protected, and they will help you through the process. Number three is hope and pray that you did everything we just talked about on today's podcast and what you're going to find on the white paper, because that's going to save your bacon a lot of times. Even if you were hacked, if you've got an encrypted hard drive, you're using two-factor authentication, and you've got good password hygiene, you're probably okay. And with that, by the way, goes physical security too. You have door locks. You have locks on your file cabinets if you have those file cabinets. If you work from home, it's still a smart idea to have locks on things, because who else has access to your home? What happens if your house gets broken into? If the locks fail, at least you can be like, yes, I took preventative measures and I had locks on things. If you work in an office building and you're responsible for that office building, and this is a major one, but nobody ever thinks about it, are the pins for the door hinges on the inside or the outside.
Yeah.
I was at an office that my former company was leasing, and I told the guys who worked that office primarily, I'm like, this office door has the hinges on the outside. If I wanted to break in your office, I don't need to go after the lock. I pop the hinges out and the door comes right off. There's pin screws that you can put in that make it so that's impossible to happen for like $3. There's ways to improve your overall security, but be thinking through, if I were a criminal up to nefarious purposes, what would I do? And try to mitigate those types of things so that when something hits you and you report it, you can be like, this is what I've done. This is what I did previously. This is where we're protected. For most of the agents that are listening, the agents that are listening here, cyber insurance is probably not a realistic thing, and it's probably not needed either. Most people are not targeted specifically. They are targeted as a crime of opportunity, and cyber insurance is designed for massive, large amounts of data. Most people, I feel these days, are utilizing software as a service, cloud services like CRM systems, think Agency Block, think Salesforce.com, AI systems. As long as those systems have set themselves up properly, SOC 2 compliance, good, HIPAA practices in place, you're generally pretty well protected. And your portion of that protection is things like your password, two-factor authentication. Are you leaving your computer just open for anybody to access while you walk off to the bathroom? That type of thing. So to answer your question, though, the biggest thing is, do the stuff ahead of time to mitigate the issues, and then report if there is an issue.
Gotcha. I noticed from earlier, anytime I get an email from my financial advisor, always with, the two-step and all these things, so if we put some of these things into place, what would the communication, what would you suggest agents talk to their clients about? Just saying, oh, every time you send me an email now, I got to do, these things is it just simply explaining I'm doing this for your protection?
So there's a couple ways to look at it. Number one, the level of security that you go after, all right, is directly or indirectly proportionate to the amount of convenience that there is. So the higher the security, the more inconvenient it's going to be. There's a balance there that you can play with based on where you see that risk. The email encryption thing that we talked about earlier, if you use just TLS encryption, that's automatic in most cases. There's not really anything that's going to look different than a normal email. Versus I might have to say, nope, send me a one-time password and then log in with a two-factor authentication. Most of the time, your clients, if they're initiating the email, don't actually have to do anything. And if they send you an email with PHI all over it, that's not a HIPAA breach. I would advise them against it, but they are choosing to disclose that. I would not say, hey, can you jump on your computer and send me your entire list of medications if they don't know how to do it securely, because then you're kind of advising them to do it. Use something like RetireFlow. That makes it a lot more secure. But think about the level of security. If somebody starts complaining about this is too hard, you're making it too challenging, explain to them, I understand that it's inconvenient. My goal is to protect your data because this data is extremely valuable on the internet. To give you an idea, by the way, health data on the dark web is, last I heard, 20 times more valuable than standard data. All right. And so they want this health data. And so just tell your clients, I'm trying to protect you. I'm trying to do right by you. And there are laws and regulations I'm required to comply with for those reasons. And there are agents out there that don't always do that. But I'm here for you. My job is to protect you. That's what you pay me for. And so I do apologize that it's a little more inconvenient, but it is for your best interest.
Yeah. Well, this has been super informative and making me, I want to change all my passwords right now. But before we wrap up, I wanted to just a quick rapid fire with you. Just 4 questions. Okay. Number 1, biggest mistake agents make.
So I'm going to do 2 answers. One is not being security focused at all and even thinking about it, putting their head in the sand. But number 2 is using the same password on everything. Get a password management system with multi-factor authentication. It actually makes your life easier.
Yeah. Okay. Next one, most overrated security habit.
Changing your passwords every 30 days. There's actually some, we'll call it modern wisdom out there that if you are using the proper type of password and good password hygiene across the board, you shouldn't actually have to change your passwords more than at most once a year, because you're more likely to recycle if you do. I don't know how much I agree with that. I'll tell you, I almost never change my passwords because all of mine are 30 random characters long and every last one of them is different. They're not hackable.
Nice. And then most underrated.
Well, let's go with the email situation. Based on what I see, just my unofficial general survey of the market with agents, they're all using Gmail and AOL and Outlook, and people aren't using secure emails. And so they don't realize how big of a problem that actually is.
Yeah. And then last one tool every agent should use.
Password management with multi-factor authentication. I'm a huge fan of Google Authenticator. It's free to get it on your cell phone. I will tell everybody right now, for both your password manager and usually Google Authenticator, you can print one-time use passcodes out that are exactly that. Like you jump in a lake and you lose your phone and you no longer have that secondary ability. I can open up my safe and I have on a physical piece of paper, not stored somewhere else, physical piece of paper inside of a safe, 10 one-time use codes that I can use to get back into the system. So I have been in that boat before. And so think about what's your emergency plan if you don't have access to that. The other thing is you might have, like, I have my Google Authenticator on both my iPad and my iPhone. I'm probably not jumping in a lake with my iPad in my pocket.
Well, this has just been super informative and helpful, and I'm really excited to share your white page on all things cybersecurity. Yeah.
Jameson,
Well,
thank you so much for taking the
yeah,
time,
thank you.
confusing the hell out of me, which doesn't take much, but you've overdone it. No, this is really good. We're all about protection in this business. We need to apply it to ourselves.
So before we wrap, we ask every guest this question. And it is, if an agent listening to this episode only took one piece of advice from your experience in the insurance industry, what would you want it to be?
When it comes to security, go a layer deeper. Be thinking about what's that next step. Don't just think about what you see in front of you. Think about what could happen and how do you put a simple fix in place so that that doesn't happen. Try to think like the bad guy so that you don't end up having to pick up their mess.
Yeah.
I love it.
Love it. Okay,
Awesome.
awesome.
Hey, thank you so much.
All right, y'all.
Yeah,